Okay. So could you now tell us, please, Curtis, where your institute is involved in new charter cities? Like, where are we talking about? Where will these cities be? Where are they in the development cycle? What's happening? I'd love to know.
Yeah. So, I mean, so we are an organization, CCI. We were founded in 2017. So we're in year 5. That's in the think tank world. We're still a baby. And, it does take a long time to build thriving new cities too. So we're talking on the timeline of decades, not years. So we are involved in several projects. They are nascent. So I'll go over some of them. One of them is in Lusaka, Zambia, just outside Lusaka, Zambia. It's called Nkwashi. It's a charter city, new city development that's aimed at 100,000 residents. And its anchor tenant is anchored around a university. And so what the model is to have this STEM university, a science, technology, engineering, math, attract really bright, smart Zambians to this university, train them up in STEM subjects, and then connect those graduates, those STEM graduates, with remote work in either Europe or the States. And that does two things. I mean, you're going to earn more being employed by these European and American tech companies, number one. But number two, these graduates are also going to earn in American dollars or euros, and that allows them also to hedge against the volatility of the Zambian kwacha, which is really tied to copper price fluctuations, which can experience really wide swings. And so that's the model for Nkwashi. Nkwashi's attracted its first few residents. I think it's a few years in operation. The groundwork foundations have been laid for the building of the university. There's also like a feeder school, so a middle school, high school that will attempt to feed students into the university called Explorer Academy. And so that's Nkwashi. The other ones worth mentioning are Talent City in Nigeria. So the founder of Talent City, his name is Ian Aboyeji, or E. He's one of the most successful Nigerian tech founders in the country. He's co-founder of Andela and Flutterwave, two of the more successful African tech startups and unicorns. And so he wants to give back to the Nigerian tech community that's growing really rapidly. But he sees the biggest constraint on that tech ecosystem in Nigeria as tech talent. And so he wants to establish this space, this jurisdiction, with new rules that especially allow for freedom around things like crypto and more innovative technologies, and provide a very reliable digital infrastructure and power and electricity and all those things that you need in order to function as a tech company in the modern world. And so that's Talent City. Another one in Nigeria is called Enyimba Economic City. It's in the southwest, so not on the outside of Lagos like Talent City, but in a place called Abia State, and that's in the Delta region. And so those familiar with Nigeria know that the Delta region is sort of the oil and gas sector, oil and gas region of Nigeria. So this city is aimed for 1.5 million residents. It would, in phase 1, be oriented around logistics and processing around the O&G sector in the Delta region. But it envisions in phase 2 and phase 3 to expand beyond that focus on logistics and O&G processing to having a university and a world-class hospital and research hospital, because some of the social sector provisions in the south and southeast of Nigeria are just really, really lacking. And so that's probably our biggest and most ambitious single project. The other, and this is the most recent project that we're engaged with, is in Malawi. And we're really, really excited. So we've just signed an MOU with the National Planning Commission in Malawi, who've spent the last 3 years coming up with this secondary cities plan. And so this plan is really, and this has happening across the continent, it's aimed to address this challenge across a lot of African countries of really rapid urbanization. So as it stands right now today, Malawi is actually among the least urbanized countries on planet Earth. It's about 17% urbanized. But what we're going to see in the next 30 years, 28 years to 2050, is Malawi's urban population is going to more than triple. And so very kudos and plaudits to the National Planning Commission. They see this trend and say, okay, well, we need to get our ducks in a row and plan for this really, really rapid urbanization in advance. So this secondary cities plan that they've created and they launched on May 31st, I spoke at the launch, it lays out 8 new secondary cities and lays out the spatial development plan for those 8 cities that sort of, Malawi is a north-south country, so the cities are sort of spread out from the north all the way down to the south. And what we are going to do as CCI, after we have signed this MOU and we're now an official implementation partner of this secondary cities plan. So we're in the process with the National Planning Commission, the Ministry of Local Government, the Ministry of Lands, the President's Office, writing up the special jurisdiction laws that are going to apply to these 8 secondary cities across Malawi. And so this to me is one of the most exciting projects, because we have, government buy-in across a slew of needed ministries, including the president. There's already been a lot of resources and thought put into this over a sustained period of time. So you have a demonstration effect that there is that political buy-in. And the plan is already in place for these 8 secondary cities, and we're getting in at the ground floor to shape the legal jurisdiction around those 8 cities. So this is a huge opportunity for us, and we're really excited about what we're seeing in Malawi.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Are you involved in getting any of the financing or any funding from, say, World Bank or other donors? Is that where do they get any funding from those organizations, or is it, you mentioned it's a PPP, a public-private partnership, so there's an infrastructure developer, or there's a, what did you call it, an urban developer or a development company that develops it, and they've got some deal with the government that the government will pay them for providing infrastructure? How does that work, Kurtis?
Yeah, so one of the roles that we will play as implementation partner is to help facilitate financing. This is one of the biggest constraints I think most African cities and towns face, is this ability to adequately finance urban expansion, right? If it's the most rapidly urbanizing place on planet Earth. So if you have in Africa, that the estimate is that almost 1 billion people are going to move into their cities over the next 30 years. And so this is a huge transformation. And yet African towns and cities are not able to issue municipal bonds to the same level that historically European cities and American cities were able to tap in order to fund and finance urban infrastructure. And so we see these kind of municipal bond markets in Africa are either kind of really nascent or more commonly just non-existent. And so we want to help, number one, come up with a de-risked model of municipal bonds. And number two, help fill that financing gap by not just kind of public sector debt in the bond market, but also DFIs, like you mentioned, the World Bank. The IFC is a World Bank arm that invests in privates. I know the Millennium Challenge Corporation was also at the launch of the secondary cities plan in Malawi on May 31st, and they're involved in work in Malawi. So they would be great partners because they focus on infrastructure growth and institutions. So right, you have the municipal bonds that need to be figured out, that's on Malawi. You have the DFIs that will be involved in financing as well. And then the hope is that once those 2 financial pillars are in place, that a 3rd financial pillar will be then convinced that this is a good idea. And that's the private sector. Typically in these new emerging frontier markets, it's the government that needs to get its house in order. and then the DFIs that come in ahead of the private sector. And that's a signal to the private sector that, okay, this is now a place where I can do business and start offering different financial instruments to.
Yeah.